Hai, selamat datang ke podcast Buang Nusantara sekali lagi. Sebuah podcast yang membincangkan soal budaya, seni dan politik. Pada kali ini kita bersama dengan seorang tetamu, iaitu saudara Tazrul Adha. Right. So, topik yang kita akan bincangkan pada hari ini adalah berkenaan dengan kerja yang dilakukan oleh TED lah, lebih kurang. Mungkin berapa tahun TED? 20 tahun kau dah involved dalam election monitoring?
Kurang lebih 20 tahun.
Kurang lebih 20 tahun. So, fokus dia kita bincang pasal, sembang pasal election monitoring dan sedikit sebanyak tentang proses mungkin pendemokrasian, isu keselamatan dekat khusus mungkin dekat Southeast Asia, negara serat rantau Asia Tenggara kan. Dan kita of course dalam 3 serangkai ni kita ada saudara Badrul Hisham Ismail yang akan bantu saya untuk berbual dengan TED lah. Apa khabar Bad?
Okey saja.
Okay, alright. Okay, so topik dia macam ni lah lebih kurang. So lepas mungkin aku bacakan ya. Selepas Perang Dunia Kedua, kita tengok lepas adanya piawai standard antarabangsa tentang praktik pilihan raya, dan kita tengok negara-negara Eropah dah mula, sebelum tu dah ada masuk ke rantau Asia Tenggara ataupun negara dunia ketiga. Tapi selepas perang, mereka datang untuk tengok macam mana proses demokrasi terlaksana di negara-negara dunia ketiga ni kan. Dan tapi tugas election monitor ni bukan untuk memperbetulkan praktik demokrasi, tapi lebih kepada untuk melaporkan atau merakam proses tu dekat sini. And then TED adalah salah seorang yang dah terlibat lama dalam, dan even Badrul sendiri terlibat dalam election monitoring ni. And TED dah 20 tahun. So TED berjalan ke macam-macam negara dan observe election kat sana lah. So hari ni kita nak minta TED mungkin bercakap sikit atau berkongsi sedikit tentang pengalaman kerja, pahit manis kerja sebagai pemantau election ni, pemantau pilihan raya. Alright. Mungkin Pat nak start dengan soalan dulu. Okay, mungkin kita start. Ted, mungkin ceritalah dulu apa sebenarnya yang dimaksudkan dengan election monitoring ni. Mungkin tadi aku dah bagi tahu kenapa reason sedikit orang, European company datang ni untuk observe election. Mungkin Ted boleh ceritakan sikit lah.
Okay, keyword for election observer atau election monitor, whichever you like to call it, is to be neutral, non-partisan in the context of elections in a certain country. So itu memang priority number one in order for you to be observer. And obviously you need to have understanding about the human rights issues. Any backgrounds on political science would do it just as well.
Okay. But
aku nak tanya apa tu? Aku nak tanya macam mana kau start je sebenarnya. Kau start dengan Mafrel dulu ke? Itulah, maknanya kita tahu ada kawan-kawan yang start sebelum kita start. Yang aku tahu post 98 di Malaysia lah, anak-anak muda macam mana boleh terlibat dengan election monitoring ni, boleh terlibat dengan Unfrel atau buka Mafrel ke apa semua. Tapi aku kurang jelas sikit lah apa. Aku tahu bila aku start je, aku kurang tahu sebelum-sebelumnya. So kalau cuba cerita sikit macam mana budak-budak UBU ni boleh pergi.
Okay, mungkin fakta yang aku nak ceritakan ni mungkin sedikit ralat, sebab aku pun sama macam kau, aku pun tak ada initial exposure about what was going on pre-2000s. Yakni kalau kita bercakap pasal proses demokrasi yang berlaku dekat Malaysia pada tahun 1998. But Bud and I knows that there were people who were sent to different countries to observe elections. At that time aku rasa, kalau tak salah aku, Rahmat Harun. Rahmat Harun was one of a few guys who who were deployed to Cambodia after the fall of the Khmer Rouge. I mean, it took several years or months for the country to stabilize. But as far as I know, Rahmat and a few other guys were the first batch of observers sent by NFREL. NFREL stands for Asian Network for Free and Fair Election. Asian Network for Free Elections, based in Bangkok. So he was there. He came back, and then he inspired everyone at the coffee table, and said that it was the best of his exposure on the ground. So of course lepas tu memang ada MAFREL. MAFREL was established in preparation for general elections in Malaysia. But of course masa tu SPR ni agak kuku besi. So
ini apa 2004?
This is 2000, even before 2004 actually. But they were there to sort of spark the momentum, just to create an avenue for election observation process to take shape in Malaysia juga. Sebab masa tu SPR ni pun, as I said, kuku besi, and it's a very ironclad institution. There's no way you can speak boldly towards the government or government agencies. You get into trouble. So at that time, MAFREL was part and parcels of ANFREL. But my exposure, my first rodeo with ANFREL was the elections in Thailand. This was in between my departure from my other firm, my other human rights firm, and I was offered a position which I cannot refuse because it was still in the country that I was at. So it gave me an opportunity to look at how a democratic process actually works. It's completely different than my primary knowledge of human rights. It's like human rights is one cluster.
Yep.
Democracy, democratization process is another. So,
Waktu ni di Thailand lah.
waktu ni di Thailand. This was already about 2006. By then it was already 2006, 2007. Thailand had a military coup
2006.
2006. August 2006, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a long time. But so from then on, there was a push for ANFREL. ANFREL was based and still is based in Bangkok, so they might as well do something with regards to election monitoring. So from then on, it was gradual interest evolving with regards to election monitoring.
But masuk bila pula selepas TED? I mean, TED join dulu and then ataupun at the same time juga masa engkau masuk.
Aku first
join
ANFREL.
ANFREL, yeah.
2005.
2005. And then negara mana?
Waktu itu di Afghanistan. Waktu itu first time team dari Malaysia pergi tahun sebelumnya, 2004. Jadi lepas after the Taliban was pushed out, and then after 30 years diorang ada first election diorang. Tahun 2004 tu presidential election, ada satu tim yang pergi, mana ANFREL hantar tim. Aku tak tahu lagi masa tu, aku masih belajar tingkatan 6 lagi masa tu kot. Tapi 2005 aku baru habis pas sekolah, diorang nak hantar satu tim lain untuk parliamentary election. Sebenarnya kebetulan diorang offer kakak aku. Tapi kakak aku ada job, so dia tak boleh pergi. And then aku tengah tak buat benda lain, so aku join lah. Itu first time aku pergilah.
Tapi orang-orang yang terpilih untuk pergi ke Afghanistan ataupun yang first time nak pergi ke monitor election dekat luar negara, kebanyakan ada background yang macam-macam, right?
Dia aku rasa kena cekal je.
Kena cekal je. Apa tu aku rasa macam kalau aku tanya aku tak ada background yang melayakkan untuk aku pergi. apa yang aku ada waktu tu adalah aku
English boleh
aku boleh betul dalam bahasa Inggeris, aku boleh menulis dalam bahasa Inggeris, dan aku tak ada apa-apa komitmen lain yang aku boleh dengan senang pergi selama 2 bulan tanpa ada,
tak ada full time job,
tak ada full time job dan lain, tak ada orang yang aku perlu jaga apa semua. So aku rasa dia lebih kepada a mixture of your availability at that time, whether you can leave the country or not and spend some time in another country, and just basic knowledge on language lah, sebab ujung-ujungnya kerjanya adalah berinteraksi dengan orang. So
tapi sebelum tu pernah tak buat election monitoring dekat negara sendiri? I mean dekat
aku
Malaysia
nak
masa tu.
mengundi tak layak lagi masa tu. Umur aku 20 kan. Malaysia masa umur 21 baru boleh mengundi. Mengundi pun tak pernah. So memang untuk aku secara kebetulan je lah kan. Dan aku memang memang kebetulan mengisi kekosongan yang mengisi kekosongan lah. Tak ada orang yang boleh pergi. So aku pergi je.
Anda berapa orang masa tu yang ke Afghanistan, dan semua Malaysian ataupun
tak,
negara-negara
dia
lain?
Dia macam apa yang tak cakap tu lah, Unfrail. Dia Unfrail ni dia based di Bangkok.
Membership based organisation. So dia ada wakil-wakil NGO di setiap negara di Southeast Asia, not only di Southeast Asia but also di South Asia and East Asia. So Afghanistan falls under the geographical area of South Asia primarily, by extension of Pakistan semua tu, but so it was considered like a part of observation mission.
So before biasanya biasa sebelum orang start election monitoring ni, dia kena ada proses debriefing dulu. And then I mean aku bila bayangkan macam bila ada, it's macam tugas, I mean very tugas yang sangat besar, and then kau dibagi portfolio, and then kau perlu study dulu mungkin tentang negara-negara yang kau nak pergi tu nanti. Ataupun kau memang perlu tahu, ada basic knowledge about that country, that political system kat sana ke macam mana, ataupun memang dah kosong sangat and just pergi and then study paperwork je.
Yalah, macam Badrul cakap tu, dia pergi first time as a first
newbie, virgin.
A newbie. In my case, long before my first mission in Thailand, I have the exposure of fieldwork experience on the ground. This was during my time with humanitarian work down in Aceh just after the tsunami. So a bit of everything actually helps push for your interest in election observation. Macam Badrul cakap tadi, cekal, boleh berkomunikasi dan tabah. I think these 3 are keys to a successful return to your homeland.
In one piece.
Because when we talk about election monitoring, we don't just monitor any elections on
the face of the earth.
In fact, on the face of the earth. There is a reason why observers are sent to these places, because primarily to look at democratization process post-conflict and or conflict countries. So obviously after the conflict, there's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of unpredictable moves from local stakeholders. So kalau nak kata pergi masuk saja, it needs a bit more than just guts. Kau kena ada, maksudnya
common sense
as well, but you also need to have this motivation to know about the country's the demography of the country, the electoral process of the country, whether it exists or not. So you need to know all the general narratives of the country in order for you to start working on observation missions actually.
Aku tak ada experience monitor election dekat luar negara. Paling tidak tahun 2013 masa kita election 2013, aku pernah join I think Mereka Center punya project. Mereka Center. And then ni Dr. Meredith Wise punya project lah. So I mean masa tu ramai dan seluruh Malaysia dia pergi, dan aku ditugaskan ke Kelantan. I mean sebab aku dari sana.
Balik kampung lah.
Balik kampung lah kan. And I mean benda yang kita tengok adalah macam ada tak guna duit dalam election, and then ada macam guna poster, guna jentera kerajaan dalam election. So kalau negara-negara macam ni framework macam mana ataupun soalan-soalan macam mana yang kau tengok macam tu? Maksudnya ada rasuah ke tak ataupun pelbagai benda lagi lain. Human right of course ada tapi separate kan kau tengok.
Ya, kalau cakap pasal nak tengok whether the election process itself is rigged, kena understand the background of the country. Memang mana-mana dalam dunia ni, negara maju, negara global south, negara just gain independent, they all have this social dynamics which includes corruptions, class, stratas, banyak alasan-alasan yang membuatkan elections, democratic process ni penting untuk maintain that stability yang diorang baru capture. For example, I mean we are talking about Timor Leste 1999. There's urgency for the international community to help organize elections in order for the population to feel that like this is a secured nation for them in the coming years, for example. Untuk negara-negara yang macam Afghanistan juga, like Badrul has said, 30 years without election process. So nak start election tu dekat mana? So you have to look at the political structures of the country. And then again, in Afghanistan, you will realize there are many players. These players come from the tribal warlords, tribal groupings in all parts of Afghanistan. And it's not something that is recently established. It has long been established that way. So untuk kita observe, we need to know who to talk to and what should we talk about, before we even can go into a democratic and all the technical process of the elections.
Dia maknanya yang penting tu adalah, I think the observers sendiri harus understand yang it's a process. Kita tak boleh nak terus anggap yang election tu harus capai satu standard yang akan sama dengan semua. So the context of the country where it is at that particular point tu penting supaya kita boleh tahu untuk kita ambil consideration yang it's a process. Tidak akan dia jadi perfect pada waktu itu. Cuma macam mana nak move forward selepas itu. So misalnya macam tadi kita sebut pasal Afghanistan, baru lepas 30 tahun perang, kalau kita nak semua yang bertanding kandidat itu ada clean sheet, tidak ada masalah, tidak pernah melakukan apa-apa crime, tidak pernah melakukan apa-apa terlibat dengan corruption, terlibat dengan peperangan, impossible. So macam mana kita nak at least wujudkan satu institution yang mungkin pada waktu sekarang diorang masih boleh terlibat, tapi macam mana untuk masa akan datang tu, macam mana untuk membersihkan lagi lah keadaan tu. Tapi nak perfect by that time tu memang tidak boleh lah. So itu yang bila kita pergi tu, first few days at least kita akan ada briefing session untuk
familiarize dengan context of the election.
So group yang pergi election monitoring ni, dia are they invited ataupun memang dia orang offer sendiri pergi ataupun secara legal, illegal? Ada tak situasi yang memang kau tak dibenarkan masuk tapi masuk juga macam tu?
Semua tu betul, tapi precondition to observing election is that in my experience with other organisation, the Carter Center, the organisations need to be invited by the governing body of the country, as and also the opposition groups
by the parliament,
by the parliament, technically by all the stakeholders in the country, in order for you to be accredited to observe elections. And the fact that the Carter Center has been observing elections since the 80s, so which make them about 120 plus election observation around the world in the last almost 40 years now, make sense to inviting countries to have Carter Center to observe elections. So that is the precursor to any election observations. Even with UNFREL pun sama. You need to be invited by all the stakeholders in the country. And then obviously you need to have good local networks to assist you when you are on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, let's say like aku sebagai Perdana Menteri, negara Malaysia, dan untuk apa aku perlu invite orang luar untuk observe election yang aku run dekat negara sendiri, like that. So what's the kepentingan untuk ada outsiders untuk datang dan tell you that this is right or wrong, something like that. And kenapa kata center, which is ataupun dia boleh endorse, maksudnya kalau dia endorse means maksudnya ada demokrasi dekat negara ni, and then kau dapat mileage daripada tu.
Ya, dalam dunia yang serba global ni, a man cannot be an island. Maksudnya tak boleh sendiri-sendiri. But in reality, memang ada negara-negara yang tidak mahu akan reject any application untuk observe their election. Particularly India, for example. India, so-called the largest democracy in the world, never and categorically denied access for international observers to observe their elections. Dia punya argument dia ialah kita the biggest democracy, jadi we know what we're doing. So but that's India. There are other countries who in fact want international community to observe their election in order to legitimize the situation on the ground. Both governing party dengan opposition needs to have a third eye or non-partisan monitors in order to say that the election is bona fide or otherwise.
To legitimize lah.
To legitimize. Legitimize could be a contentious term right now, because then takut nanti dianggap this party C is the opposition, but they are very popular among the voters, so therefore we need to say that they are a legitimate force, which can cause controversy. So election monitors is not just looking at black and white, it's about looking at the technicalities on the ground. So yeah, to make sense of this, election observation is all about technical observations.
Also about memerhatikan lingkungan, adakah nyaman untuk orang pergi mengundi atau tidak.
That was during the campaign period, semua itulah. I mean, how people react to the proposal of the election. People terrified. Again,
ataupun orang nak atau tidak.
Again, it's you're talking about conflict and post-conflict countries. Situations are not necessarily calm all day long.
Contohnya mungkin kita boleh cerita sikit yang waktu kita pergi ke Mindanao tahun 2008, where the election for Mindanao was planned, but at the same time the peace process antara the MILF dan the Philippine government pun berjalan, di mana one of the argument is that diorang for the peace process to continue, diorang tidak mahu ada election tu berlangsung waktu itu. So aku ingat waktu tu kita dah deploy pun kita belum tahu whether election was going to happen or not, kan. So itu one of the dynamic yang kita kena observe, dan waktu tu kita kena tanyalah orang setuju ke tidak election ni dipostpone, apa beza dia kalau kita buat sekarang ni, adakah dia akan mengganggu peace process tidak. So those are the kind of specific context of the country and of the locality yang kita kena understand.
I mean, sometimes argument sesetengah negara, especially yang baru lepas daripada konflik ataupun masih berkonflik, adalah especially negara-negara di Asia Tenggara, adalah kita mungkin orang kata kita ada demokrasi kita sendiri, ataupun kita bukan, kita tak nak demokrasi, ataupun kita ada demokrasi kita sendiri. So based on that kepercayaan, dan orang selalu macam menolak untuk ditunjukkan macam mana macam tu, kan. Like kau datang buat apa? I mean, kita baru demokrasi, and then tak semestinya model atau kerangka yang kau nak bawa adalah kerangka yang ideal untuk negara-negara ketiga lah, lebih kurang nak amalkan demokrasi. So ada faktor rasa tak percaya pada orang lain macam tu.
Sorry, with a caveat, election observation tidak semestinya berlaku di post-conflict or conflict countries. In fact, the Carter Center itself observe elections in rich countries. For example, in the United States itself, like contohnya di Cherokee Reservation area, di First Nation, the Native American settlement areas, in order to support the community through democratic process. And to add, a lot of people are looking at China as a perfect example of authoritarian regime. What people don't know is actually there is a local election that takes place proactively every year, because China is a very big country, and Carter Center happens to be working with the Peking University in Beijing to look into how elections takes place in China at the different level, not the political
local election,
national level, but lower than that, like local council elections. So that happens, but obviously media kita tak highlight on that, and with that lack of understanding, we thought that China has no democratic process at all, which is altogether wrong.
I mean, based on like korang cerita pasal tugas election monitoring ni, dan bagi aku rasa tugas yang sangat berbahaya juga. Pernah tak deport balik ke Malaysia? Ada tak experience tu sampai kat sana and then tiba-tiba orang aku buat apa kau datang sini balik, like that. Ada tak experience tu?
Waktu di Philippines sebenarnya. Waktu di Philippines tahun 2008 aku pernah pergi sekali tu je lah. Ted pun ada juga waktu tu, tapi kita dihantar ke province lain. Tapi I remember the COMELEC, the Commission of Election Philippines, were very unhappy with our first statement post-election. Sebab memang waktu itu first time diorang nak try the automated version of voting. So everything pakai machine apa semua, dan certain part di Mindanao tu memang elektrik pun tidak stabil. So there were a lot of issues lah with this with this electronic automated voting system, yang kita cakap awal-awal lah, ada issue with this with this electronic system. Banyak orang tak dapat mengundi, waktu mengundi jadi kucak-kacir apa semua disebabkan itu. Dan juga ada masalah security sebab di Mindanao waktu itu peace process tu pun sedang berlangsung. Even in fact tempat yang aku pergi Sulu, a few days before aku pergi tu ada kidnapping of journalists apa semua. Macam mana kita boleh balik in one piece pun aku macam masih berfikir lagi. But basically things were not well lah at that time. There were a lot of issues, security issues and technical issues yang kita orang berterus terang lah dalam one of our earlier reports, and the COMELEC was very upset. Bila kita dipanggil ke meeting di Manila, berjumpa dengan election commissioner diorang, very tense, bergaduh, berperang, unfair dengan diorang ni. Macam kita terpaksa, we have to be courteous lah sebab tempat diorang, tapi they were very upset, maki hamun apa semua, dan diorang tidak mahu terima kita punya pandangan apa semua tu lah. So these things happen lah. It's not an unusual thing. Dan sebenarnya pernah juga pergi ke tempat-tempat yang jemputan itu tidak jelas kan. Kita dijemput atau tidak. Aku boleh cakap on my part je lah sebab aku pun dah tak terlibat sangat. Tapi memang pernah satu ketika dihantar ke Myanmar. Waktu itu first time Suci bertanding by election, tidak ada accreditation. So memang kena menyamar jadi jual orang lain, buat benda ni semua lah. So kadang-kadang those things happen, but most of the cases is we do get accreditation before we proceed with the mission lah.
That ada experience more than 20 years, and then ada tak macam perubahan dari awal kau pergi ke negara, let's say Aceh, and then Myanmar, and then kemudian kau datang balik ke negara yang tempat yang kau pernah datang hari tu. So sampai sekarang ada tak perubahan dari segi penerimaan orang, penerimaan negara ataupun political actors kat sana untuk monitoring ni, election, atau orang-orang yang macam kau datang jumpa orang kampung bercakap?
First, of course, anything, the first time is always the hardest. In the context of elections juga, my organisation, the organisation I work for, has a reputation to maintain a long-term relationship with the country, so that in the future, whenever election is being held, we get to observe the elections. So now the question is, what's so great about observing election in this country? But that is all about. That is why democracy is very important. Democracy is election monitoring is not a one-off mission. It's ongoing. So once you have established your status with the hosting country, you ought to maintain your work throughout until, of course, you finish your you no longer have the funds to operate, and also, you know, sometimes it happen that you get kicked out by the the current government. But once you have established your presence in the country, it's time to start working with the local stakeholders, and that's how we maintain kita punya basically presence to multiply efforts for democratic processes in the country. Lebih kurang macam tu lah.
So orang-orang yang macam mana kau jumpa selalunya? Military? Kalau Myanmar, of course aku rasa kena jumpa military juga. Like, you know, siapa yang paling hard, paling susah kau nak bawa duduk semeja dan tanya soalan?
So kalau Badrul was able to
Gangsters,
traverse around Myanmar undetected, my case, just prior to him arriving in Rangoon, we were discovered by the junta, the intelligence units of the Burmese authority. So a few of us got sent back, and I was put on the blacklist for about 2 years. I still have the copy of the list, and I was threatened. For refusing to evacuate the country, I was threatened with 6 months imprisonment at the insane prison. That was then. But 2 years after that, I came back. I went back to Myanmar with a different organization. This was with the Carter Center, and surprise, the guy who sent me off,
masih kat situ.
Shakes my hand and said, welcome back to Myanmar. So yeah, you know, a bit of everything there. But itulah, first of all, it's unpredictable. You know. Second of all, once you are there, you commit to what you do best. Kalau nak cerita pengalaman di negara-negara lain juga, maybe the last election, the last gig was in Sierra Leone. We were supposed to be there for about 10 weeks, and then we were only there for shy of 2 weeks because the situation immediately after the election was very intense. The election was notably rigged, and opposing sides are not agreeing with everything that is unfolding. So there was a big threat coming from all sides of the country, and we had to leave the country before the proper time allocated. So that was because we felt the danger of staying longer, so we have to leave.
So Ted kena deport masa tu, and then kau terlibat dalam election monitoring in that country dekat Myanmar masa tu juga. And then kau dalam flight masa tu baru sampai, and then
Ted dia deport malam sebelum aku patut pergi.
malam sebelum kau pergi, and then kau sampai dekat sana jugalah, and then kau dapat berita yang Ted dah kena deport.
Tak, malam sebelum tu aku dapat berita.
Oh, but still
kita sempat communicate kan. Aku sempat
tiba-tiba Ted call aku malam tu, dia cakap Kelantan.
Okay.
Ted bukan Kelantan, so macam cakap Kelantan kan.
Alright.
Sebab dia kat airport dah kena tahan lah. But the organisation still want people to try to observe. And ada orang yang sudah di provinsi-provinsi lain yang terlepas, yang sekali dengan Ted masa tu silap aku, yang were discovered the one in Yangon kan. So the organisation decided that to proceed. Siapa-siapa yang belum,
so kau jadi role apa masa tu? Like
aku menyamar aku jadi photographer. Ya. Sebab masa tu
lah.
ada blog-blog kan. So aku cakap aku online blog punya photographer. Tapi the problem with that was yang basically, mungkin tak boleh terangkan lebih sikit, but the idea is first you send a core team untuk provide all the network dengan local organisation
for the mission.
So bila the core team terpaksa dihantar pulang, so we cannot use any of the network yang dah di-establish, yang seharusnya membantu kita orang untuk buat election tu lah, untuk buat monitoring tu lah. So with the absence of that, datang memang kena cari kontak sendiri, do whatever that we can, and still try to observe whatever yang kita boleh observe lah, which very limited lah sebenarnya. Sebab with accreditation kita boleh masuk polling station, kita boleh masuk tengok orang, observe dan tengok petugas-petugas. Tapi tanpa accreditation we are not even allowed to enter because we are no citizens kan. So which is valid lah, we shouldn't be able to enter lah if there's no tu kan. So it limits the kind of observation yang kita boleh buat lah. Sebab tu it's actually very important to get the invitation and to be accredited, because then apa yang kau nampak tu hanya lingkungan di luar sahajalah. Kau still boleh understand the political climate and people punya perspective and all that, but the technical process of the election tu memang you're totally out of it lah.
Sebab tak boleh nak
Sebab
masuk
tak boleh
dekat.
nak masuk dan tak boleh nak observe.
Masuk dekat lah. I mean, like apa pandangan, like Ted, kalau kita tengok election dekat Malaysia and then kau dah tengok dekat negara-negara lain, Aceh, dekat Myanmar, selain Aceh, Myanmar, mana negara lain dekat Southeast Asia yang kau dah observe, and then macam mana, how do you compare the democratic process dekat negara-negara ni macam tu? Oh, Malaysia ni belakang lagi ataupun lebih advance sikit berbanding negara-negara ni?
Yeah, okay. Democracy itself is not bulletproof solution for any countries. You know, it has many loopholes. Democracy itself is a living organism. It grows with the society, in my opinion. It grows with the economy. It grows with the global trends. You know, untuk selain dari negara-negara Southeast Asia, aku juga dapat memantau elections di South Asia, Middle East dan di Africa continent. So again, different country has a different take on democracy, because democracy is not one size fit all type of
System.
Medicine. You know, it cannot solve any problem in the country overnight. Again, earlier Bud mentioned banyak aspek yang diperlukan untuk memastikan democratic practices ini diselenggarakan seterusnya. Tak patut sebuah negara yang baru keluar daripada kancah perang atau kancah konflik tiba-tiba slide down again hanya kerana ada orang tak puas hati. In fact, demokrasi ini cuba menghalalkan, basically cuba menjemput semua player-player di dalam negara itu, tak kira dia dari side kiri atau side kanan atau side tengah, independent, they are all part of the social fabric dan they must be accorded with democratic rights, which is through elections, you know. So bagi aku, once you are on the ground, it's no longer a matter for you whether you see things as a black and white, you see things as kiri lawan kanan, merah lawan hijau atau biru lawan kuning, for example. It's all about the the technical parts of the election itself. Like it's bigger than just one political party against the other political parties. We're talking about democratic standard which is sanctioned by the international bodies, for example. Like democratic process is the only way to bring about change, secure the population's future, and to promote a global partnership with other countries in the region. You cannot be an isolated country, because these days you need international to help, to assist. So this is the bigger picture of why election is matter.
Aku nak tanya that, kan biasanya all the observation yang kita pergi tu ada a very unique historical context of that time lah kan. Misalnya macam bila kita ke Filipina tu tengah ada peace process. Di Myanmar first time election selepas beberapa puluh tahun bila junta nak start open up sikit. Yeah, exactly. Even in Afghanistan dan Sri Lanka tu pun there's a historical context to that election kan, yang membuatkan semua tu unik dan menarik lah kan. Pengalaman kau yang mana yang paling interesting?
Interesting dari sudut mana tu?
Dari
makanan dia ke?
Dari sudut konteks history dan political climate tu sendiri.
Susah nak jawab soalan ni sebab again different countries has provided me with different exposures. Lepas tu kau punya your observer friends are also varies from one mission to another. But I can point out maybe 3 missions that I like best. For example, one in Nepal, second, possibly the first being in Egypt. This was right after the Popular Revolution, the
Arab Spring.
The Arab Springs. And then of course Nepal, I mentioned it, and the third best somewhere in Africa. I can't remember where. I mean, like it's been a long time, but yeah, it's fun because the country, the people in the country alone is very excited about the election. They are very excited about the change that is coming. And we for ourselves, we are very happy. We will be very, very happy if we work in a country where we are generally accepted. To make things easier, So this has taken place. This is why I say that you need to be happy when the people on the ground are happy. You get these impressions in Nepal, because Nepal generally right after the end of that civil conflict between the Maoists and the pro-monarch government, things have gradually become very vibrant. I mean, suddenly, from maybe few million voters to many more million voters are on the voter list. Which tells you that democracy is flourishing. So the ambient itself allows you to feel that there is some positive things that will take place after the election. And as I can attest to my experience in Nepal, being observing elections in Nepal, democracy has improved. The economic of the country has also improved. And again, Nepal is one of a few poor countries. They had to send. They're still sending their citizens abroad for work in order to supplement the country's financial coffers. But then again, in general, everyone is acceptable to the idea of a democratic process. And in Egypt, because it was the first time election is to be held in a free and fair condition, because prior to that, during the Hosni Mubarak's time, you can call him a dictator or authoritarian in that case, because he was never been defeated for the last 30 years throughout his period. So election was notably rigged during his time, but he was brought down, similarly to what happened with Suharto. So he was brought down through popular revolt, and of course what takes place after that was a participation of all stakeholders. And look at Indonesia now, for example, it's a robust electoral process. Everyone is participating, very progressive attitudes towards election, but this is not something that is currently happening dekat Egypt, unfortunately. It's sliding so badly now, it's almost beyond recognitions. So different, again, to conclude, different countries give you different exposure and experience, because also different countries have a different electoral systems. Not everyone is using FPTP, first past the post system. Many countries are also using.
Apa pendapat kau tentang FPTP?
Tu nanti kejap. proportional representation systems, or even hybrid. My thoughts about first past the post, it's a simplified version of right to suffrage. It's a very simple. You don't need rocket scientists. You do need a rocket scientist as a voter, but you also need layman or shoemaker as a voter as well. So this will bring down FPTP, bring down everyone on equal term. But then again, proportional representative is also similar, but the calculation, the mathematics is slightly more different. But you need a different kind of ideals or conditions for FPTP or proportional representation system to take place. In Malaysian context, FPTP is too easy. It makes a democratic system look very amateur, unfortunately.
So kau rasa kita patut tukar lah?
I think in a country that is diverse as Malaysia, we need to embrace a new electoral system. And I think PR is something we all should look at.
Kita ada kurang dari 10 minit lagi. Soalan seterusnya, ni berkenaan dengan report yang korang pergi observe election and then kau buat report. Especially kalau kau buat qualitative research, kan? Macam bukan buat survey and then tanya Q&A, tanda-tanda, bukan survey. Especially qualitative research. Dan especially kalau pergi negara-negara macam Malaysia, Southeast Asia ataupun Indonesia, orang yang observe tu, dia mungkin dapat tangkap dia punya nuance bila kau interview sesiapa, military, orang kampung, dan orang Asia lah. Macam kau pergi, kau jumpa ke negara Asia juga, kau tahu adat budaya dia, macam tu. Tapi kau pergi, kau bekerja untuk organisasi yang bukan Asia lah, macam tu kan. And then kau buat report, and then nanti kan ada master report juga nanti daripada untuk Carter Center. So how much report yang kau produce dekat bawah ni being atau translated ataupun di represented data-data ni, ataupun dah ada perubahan dalam perjalanan, bila master report dah buat, so mungkin hilang that nuance yang kita dapat tangkap sebagai person,
Yalah, at the end of any missions, the organisation will produce a very thick book of observation work. This is mostly very academic, mostly on all the technicalities. But apa yang sebagai observer, apa yang kita sumbangkan kepada untuk mencapai kepada master report ni ialah laporan, continuation, almost every week you have to submit report on the ground. So untuk memahami how that works, you have to understand that in a country where you observe elections, you will be divided into several teams. Okay, so teams are divided based on area of responsibility. So katalah engkau di lokasi utara, so you have to do everything that the team in selatan do, exact same thing. So you are basically duplicating work, and this has to go through on repeat. So at the end of the day, at the end of the week, report must be submitted to the core team. The core team ni akan compile semuanya with the right language, with obviously because the core team are the one who will decide on the analysis part. You know, what we do is providing them raw materials, raw analysis data, both quantitative and qualitative, but it is up to the core team and, you know, the country representative to decide on the directions of the report. You know.
Aku nak tanya perbezaan antara, sebab aku cuma pernah terlibat dengan Unframe punya mission sajalah, and pengalaman aku with Unframe ni, kita punya work ni there's a sense of collective. So the briefing tu sama-sama, cuma bila deployed is ikut team, macam aku cakap tadi, based on area of responsibility, yang kita orang bagi laporan mingguan atau bulanan apa semua. But then at the end of it, kita orang semua akan berkumpul dan kita semua akan cerita balik, berkongsi balik from each team, apa pengalaman dan apa observation masing-masing. Malah most of the time, at least my experience dengan Unframe ni, kita punya press statement tu pun we do it together. Dan biasanya kalau ada orang Malaysia kat situ, orang Malaysia yang tulis lah, sebab orang Malaysia yang English paling okey lah biasa kan. Tapi ada that whole sense yang team tu tak kisah kau junior ke, kau senior ke, semua akan proactively contribute to at least the first statement that will be released. Kalau kata center macam mana?
Kalau mengikut pengalaman aku dengan kata center, yes, the core team alone is a very selected people. They know what they're doing. They probably have more experience in the desk work and also the country itself. They may have probably worked in that country for many more years than the rest of us. You know, that makes him a bona fide, that makes her a bona fide experts on the country. So when it comes to writing statements, and because the fact that observers would still be on the ground even after the election day means that there is no way you can participate in the drafting of the preliminary report, which is required to be released within 48 hours or, you know, the 3 days period following the elections. You know, that's why it's a preliminary report. So we observers have no hands on what's released to the media from our core team in the capital, because we are still in the remote place. All we need to do is to continue observation post election. You know, kalau macam kau cakap tadi, Unframe ni sebab kita ni different because Asian are far more friendlier with one another. You know, like the idea of helping one another is a very promoted, very much encouraged. Whereas with the Carter Center, it's a because you are talking about observers from a different cultural background, different countries. You know, like, so it's not the same as Unframe, who prioritize Asian faces. You know, in order to promote Asian solidarity. You know, whereas Carter Center is or any other international organization, probably IRI, EU, or NDI, or even ideas or ECOWAS of Africa, for example. They have their different sets of priorities, different sets of targets. So in this case, dia tak boleh nak samakan dengan semua organisation yang ada.
So each organisation ni ada their own internal culture lah, basically.
You should encourage that, actually. You know, like culture of solidarity lah, basically. Friendship tu kena in order to support one another.
So your next mission kat mana?
Next mission
dah dapat kebenaran ke belum?
Next mission, I have been given a notification about my upcoming rodeo. So this will be held in Africa, but the date of the election itself is not certain. Mainly because the country in question is still going through. In fact, for the last few months, it has been intense. The civil conflict between the two conflicting armed institutions, I would say, has increased, resulting in a lot of civilians killed and injured. So it's a bad news for this country. But this observation, should it take place based on the commitment signed by all the stakeholders in 2019. So in 2019, before the collapse of this transitional military council, there was a hope that election is to be held within 38 months. 38 months or 39 months, something like that. And since 2009, we have passed that expiry date, and a conflict renewed on its own. So making election date almost unpredictable. It can be held in 1 year's time, or it can be prolonged indefinitely. So the next mission would be very unpredictable in the sense of logistics, in the sense of coordination. And until we get that accreditation from both sides of the warring parties in country S, we are not sure what we are going to see in the coming months. So leave it at that.
Alright. So Pat, ada soalan lagi untuk Ted?
Soalan tu banyak, tapi mungkin waktu lain lah. Kita
hampir sejam. But yes, kita nak ucapkan terima kasih kepada Ted, kerana meluangkan waktu pada petang ni, pada tengah hari ni untuk berbual dengan kita tentang kerja-kerja yang dia buat selama ni.
Terima kasih.
Tak ada apa dah kot, ya?
Tak ada apa.
Saya ucapkan terima kasih sekali lagi kepada Ted. Sehingga bertemu lagi.